Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's program at Pacific Northwest Railroad Archives biweekly Zoom meeting. We are, as you just heard, we're going to be recording today's program, and our presenter has asked that questions be asked either through the chat or at the end of today's program. We're glad that you're here, and personally speaking, I can't think of a better way to spend a kind of a rainy, gloomy January Wednesday than looking at nice sunny pictures of Eastern Washington with Mark Borleske. So I just want to talk for a second about our upcoming schedule. Actually, I want to talk about the past first, which was on January 13th. Jack Christensen and Gary Tarbox had a really cool program on Grays Harbor, and that program will be available soon on the Pacific Northwest Railroad Archive YouTube channel. Coming up in our programming on January 31st, Professor Douglas Oakman, Emeritus of Pacific Lutheran University, will be tap dancing around American Morse code for us. So, and I see Dave Sproul's got a light. Maybe he's going to start sending me messages using Morse code. February 14th, PNRA veteran Mike Bergman will be here talking about streetcars of one form or another. We haven't, I don't know that he's decided. February 28th, Board President Bob Kelly of PNRA will be here talking about the history of Stevens Pass. Bob is an expert on this, so this is a program worth seeing. March 9th, we have a Squiminar for Cascade Rail Foundation. We'll have an event, live event that's going to be streamed. 4 different presentations out at the Dungeness River Nature Center, and that will be on the Milwaukee Road and the Seattle and North Coast railroads. March 13th, we're going to have a new guest, new folks in town. Friends of the Washington Park Zoo, thanks to Trent. That was a great inspiration to me. And I'm glad that they're excited to be here. March 24th, we're going to have a Sunday night event with Gordon Clattenburg. And Gordon's in the audience today. Gordon, Oh Canada is what we're going to be looking at. And then March 27th, we're also going to have another new guest. Oregon Rail Heritage Center will be part of the program. So, for folks that are new or folks that have just logged on, hey, we're recording today's program, and I would like you to feel welcome. And if you'd like to attend a future program, if you could put your email address in the chat, we'll add you to the list of people that are invited to these, free events, and we sit around and talk about trains and stuff. Mark Borleske, Vice President of Cascade Rail Foundation, Wayne Monger, Secretary of Cascade Rail Foundation, and humble board member Jonathan Fisher, your host today, all want to remind you that this coming Saturday is our annual meeting. And if you're interested, why don't you come and find out some of the cool stuff that we're working on? We are an archive, but more importantly, we're 3-dimensional. Mark's got some great projects, and I'm not going to, as Ed Sullivan once said, hey, they didn't come to see me, they came to see the Beatles. And so at this point, I would ask everybody if we could mute. I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to switch things around. Mark, are you ready to go?
Ready to go.
Mark says he's ready to go, folks. So.
Okay, is everybody able to see this? Hello?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, first off, welcome everybody to this presentation. It's entitled 4 Bridges of Significance. And these 4 bridges are bridges formerly on the Milwaukee Road main line between Puget Sound and Eastern Washington. And each of these bridges, as you'll see, have a different construction technique and a different history and a different story. And the the amazing thing about it, after the loss of the Milwaukee Road in 1980, the state of Washington purchased the right of way, or much of the right of way, between the Seattle watershed at Cedar Falls and the Idaho state line near Tico, Washington, and developed what was the Iron Horse State Park, or sometimes known as the John Wayne Pioneer Trail, and is now known as the Palouse to Cascade State Park Trail, Washington's Cross State Trail. So these four bridges of significance have all gone through some kind of rehabilitation in the last few years, since the year 2015, or uh, actually later than that. And so we'll take a cross-state tour. This presentation was initially um, part of an event in Rosalia, Washington, out in the Palouse, known as Bridge Day, which includes an in-person presentation, and I gave this presentation uh, for that event, followed by an actual tour of the right-of-way and the Rosalia Concrete Arch Bridge, which you'll be able to see in this presentation later. So we invite you to a fall visit to Rosalia and an opportunity to experience Bridge Day and to experience one of these bridges. Uh, to share with you, this is uh, a basic map of the Palouse to Cascades Trail, starting at Cedar Falls at the edge of the Seattle watershed and extends all the way to the Idaho state line. There are some gaps in it, existing rail service between Othello and Royal City Junction, and between Othello and Warden, some gaps with Rock Lake. But the going east to west, the bridge, excuse me, going west to east, the bridges that we'll cover are the Renslow Bridge, this Renslow Trestle over Interstate 90, the Beverly Bridge over the Columbia River, the Concrete Arch Bridge at Rosalia over in eastern Washington, and finally the Tico Bridge, or as some people call it, the Tico Trestle in Tico, Washington. So we hope you'll enjoy this tour on Washington's premier cross-state route, the former Milwaukee Road main line. Our first bridge is Renslow. The unique thing was it was a wooden bridge. It was replaced by a steel bridge shortly after the route was opened. The Milwaukee Road was opened through here in 1909 as part of the Pacific Coast Extension, and after the bridge was this wooden bridge was put in place, it was replaced by steel girders as a permanent bridge that now exists today, which was done in 1910. So as you can see, they're putting girders in during underload from the wooden trestle, from the wooden bridge. And it's one thing that's kind of amazing to do this is that the railroad was in operation when they were putting these steel girders in. So oftentimes railroaders talk about track and time, meaning the maintenance away people or the engineering people getting the right to shut down the track for hours or even a day or so. This was happening while the railroad was in operation. And this is just an example of the plans for this bridge. Intricate steelwork. It was obviously well engineered and well designed with through their engineering department, and a lot of documentation on this, as you can see in the lower corner. It's the Chicago, Milwaukee, and Puget Sound Railway, a subsidiary of the Milwaukee Road that actually was in place on the Pacific Coast Extension during the construction era and during the early days of the Milwaukee operation. This is a photograph of wonderful interpretive signs that have been put together at the Renslow Bridge. And this photograph from 1964 by Tom Gildersleeve shows box cab electrics accompanied by a diesel-powered GP9 going eastbound across the valley. This was known as the Johnson Creek. A little bit of a drainage. There's and it started out as an animal track, and it was a footpath and maybe a little bit of a dirt road. And now, as you can see in the upper photo, that
Yeah,
is it's a Interstate 90. And the
Yeah.
amazing thing about this is they were able to
Okay.
there were no modifications to this bridge to accommodate Interstate 90. It was that wide to do that. The Olympian Hiawatha crossed through this route, and this is just one glimpse from the Ainsworth collection, showing a dome car, a skytop, uh, and a skytop lounge. In 1968, the interstate was under construction in various places between Seattle and uh, the Idaho border, and right now the Renslow Bridge is in this area here between Ellensburg and Vantage. A Wayne Monger photograph of an eastbound diesel-powered freight crossing over the interstate. The electrification was gone by this time. All the Canton area is removed. The electric high line is still in place. A Blair Koistra photo of an eastbound freight train, and here at Renslow is where we go through a bit of a climate and geological transition from river valleys of the Kittitas area, a irrigated agricultural area. We kind of come into sagebrush and volcanic rock and climbing into the volcanic hills of the Saddle Mountains. The Milwaukee Road was abandoned in 1980. The rail was pulled up, and the decking, there was concrete decking over this bridge. And actually, this bridge was a ballasted deck bridge, meaning if you can see these concrete tubs, they were placed on top of the steel decking, filled with ballast, with the rail on top of it. Later on, that Department of Natural Resources removed the decking so that people couldn't cross the bridge, and that was the way it stayed for a number of years. And what we're doing is working with interpreter signs, or just kind of doing some preliminary surveys of how we're going to approach interpretation at the Renslow Bridge. The Renslow Bridge was decked, and extensive side rails were put on, both to protect people on top of the bridge as well as to protect drivers down below on Interstate 90. There's some bump outs or on the side for getting some views. And this is one of the first places going westbound on the Milwaukee Road where you can see Mount Rainier. So you can sometimes get great views of Mount Rainier kind of looking this direction. And this was reopened in 2021 as part of the Borleske Cascades Trail. And as mentioned, there were a number of names for this trail after the Milwaukee Road abandonment and Washington State taking over. And most recently, it's become the Borleske Cascade State Park Trail, which has now become a recognized name across the state. And this is an example of the signage used here at the bridge. And annually, every spring in late May, early June, the John Wayne Pioneer Wagons and Riders make a cross-state ride. And this is an example. You can see horses going across the Renslow Bridge on the Milwaukee Road right-of-way. And leaving Renslow, our next bridge is Beverly. And just to highlight this, this is an aerial photo taken by Fred Wirt, who's in our audience today. And this is the Renslow Bridge right here, if you can make it out, right there. And the Renslow Bridge, from the Renslow Bridge, we climb up the Saddle Mountains to Doris through a tunnel at on Boylston Hill, and we continue over to the Columbia River down there. And this is an amazing geological formation, because this is the Saddle Mountains here on both sides of the Columbia River, and right there is known as Sentinel Gap, where the Columbia River actually bisects the mountain range. So this is the route of the Milwaukee Road across the Saddle Mountains, over and down, and it's at 2.2%. It's the steepest grade on the Milwaukee Road main line, and there have been legendary stories about runaways on this part of the track. But as we continue, we'll focus on the bridges. The next bridge is, of course, the Beverly Bridge across the Columbia River. It's a 2,286-foot, 16 span girder deck truss with one through truss. It was built as a permanent bridge from the start, unlike the Renslow Bridge, which was wood followed by steel construction. And this bridge was built well in advance of the railroad railhead reaching this location, because of the years involved in making it from 1906 to 1909. So material came by steamboat to this location. It came out from, a lot of the steel came from Pennsylvania, and was transferred at a place called Vulcan on the Great Northern Railroad near Rock Island and Wenatchee, their crossing of the Columbia River, and brought down to on site. And so this is an example. This is not an aerial photo. This is actually taken from the Saddle Mountains, from Sentinel Gap, looking down on the Beverly side, seeing the Beverly Bridge with a train across it. And there you can see the beginning of that 2.2% grade coming up the Saddle Mountains. The construction was, this was a remote place. Construction was kind of difficult. Weather was a big factor. The Beverly, the winds down the Columbia River are pretty legendary, and there were all sorts of factors, both its location and the environmental and weather and climate considerations, making this a difficult place to work. But it got done, and it was just a major engineering feat. This is an example. This is the steamboat St. Paul, a coal-fired steamboat owned, which was used to transfer material from that Vulcan transfer point on the Great Northern upriver down to the Beverly Bridge site, and it ran up downstream one day and would run upstream the next day. And this picture was taken in December 1908. The interesting thing about the Beverly Bridge, I don't know if this is the construction engineer, but his name was Ralph Ober. He was worked in the field, and following his correspondence, he just documents a lot of problems and a lot of difficulty building this bridge. But it's interesting that it turns out I did a little research on Ralph Ober, and Ralph Ober grew up in Beverly, Massachusetts. And the Beverly, Washington is named after Beverly, Massachusetts, as are a lot of places on the Milwaukee Road, including Boylston and Malden. Uh, so we've got the origin of Beverly figured out. And also, Ralph Ober went on after the building of the Beverly Bridge. He went on to being having a partner in an engineering company that designed the Aurora Bridge in Seattle on Highway 99. So when you go over the Aurora Bridge, you can feel a connection between that and this Beverly Bridge. The construction of this bridge was done with a lot of false work. The Columbia River, the depth was not a major factor, but they used a lot of forms and false work to create coffer dams for pouring of concrete and to create the masonry piers. Once the masonry piers were in place, they did a lot of steel work to span the bridge. And this is the one through span apparently on this bridge. This is what we believe is an Aschel Curtis photo, a pastoral scene after the bridge is in place. It's before electrification, so it's before 1920, and it just kind of captures a very pleasant pastoral scene in what is a pretty dramatic location with the Saddle Mountains in the background. The Beverly Bridge, as I mentioned, was electrified from 1920 to the early 70s. Electric operations, electric trains ran across this bridge between Seattle, Tacoma, and Othello. And it was very very efficient and very useful for getting across the Saddle Mountain grades. And this is just a eastbound set of 4-unit set of box cab motors crossing the Beverly Bridge. Later on, there was a transition to diesel, and this Wayne Monger photo captures an eastbound freight at the same location. On the west side of the Columbia River is a location known as Beverly Junction, and this is a westbound freight about ready to crossing the river and ready to ascend that grade up the Saddle Mountains toward Boylston and Boylston Hill. You can see this kind of this material alongside here, and this is sort of the flotsam and jetsam of debris from derailments that were caused by wind attacking the train on the Beverly Bridge or near the Beverly Bridge. And so the winds here are legendary, and they indeed have caused derailments. One story from uh, Harold Rasmussen, a section foreman out at who lived at Beverly, was saying that he saw uh, a train with a piggyback trailer that had blown off the a flat car, and he called that into Tacoma to the dispatcher or to somebody and said a piggyback trailer just blew off the train, and he was kind of chided and said, "You don't know what you're talking about. That didn't happen." And then you can just imagine whatever, how many hours it takes for the train to go from Beverly to Tacoma. And hours later, the phone rang and it was Tacoma at the other end. And they were asking, did that trailer happen to that trailer that you saw? Did that happen to be a MILZ and rattling off a number of a specific trailer? So this it actually did happen. Uh, and right here on the left, you see this sign that says Beverly Junction. This is uh, a project of the Cascade Rail Foundation where we are installing replica station signs at historic places and named railroad places on the Palouse to Cascades Trail to help identify places, to serve as waypoint markers, as well as to preserve the history of these locations on the railroad. And actually, Beverly Junction is the junction of the Hanford branch. Uh, Kind of unusual, but the main line takes the curve, and the straight part goes into what was once a Y that that brings a branch line over to Hanford, Washington, which was the site of the Hanford Works, the super secret World War II nuclear reservation. And the Hanford Reservation is still in place, although it does not have rail service from this side, of course. So on the Beverly side, we're looking westbound toward the Saddle Mountains, across the bridge with the Cantonary, the electrification still in place, and this is what it looks like today with a gravel trail taking you to the concrete decking of the bridge. This is just something that came up during the construction. I didn't realize this was happening, but they actually have watermarks of showing the different levels of water embedded in Roman numerals on the concrete piers of the bridge. And this was taken by project engineer Adam Fulton during the decking and rehabilitation of the Beverly Bridge. Beverly served as a helper location for trains up the Saddle Mountains, and it had a small depot. It was a wind-blown little outpost. There were some people that really thought it was a hardship posting out here, and it was just a small community on the banks of the Columbia River. Uh, and right here, you notice that there are no eaves on this side of the depot. The winds were so high that at one time they picked up a part of this roof. And when the bridge and building people repaired it, they just cut off the eaves so it was flush and there was no opportunity for the wind to uplift the roof another time. So this is interesting little location. The other side of the depot is a small annex where clerical forces were added here to do the paperwork and the building to accommodate the traffic, the extra traffic that was going into the Hanford Nuclear Reservation during World War II. And again, this was a secret operation that a lot of, most people did not know or did not even have a clue of what was going on until after the dropping of the atomic bomb over Japan. Uh, from that aerial photo, I pointed out the Sentinel Gap. This is what it looks like on the trail side, on the Beverly Junction side, the west side. This is the Saddle Mountains west of the Columbia River, and this is the Saddle Mountains east of the Columbia River, also known along Crab Creek. And the right of way takes a turn and takes you across the Columbia River. It's a fascinating geological uh, situation where a river cuts through a mountain range, carved out by the Ice Age floods. So the Beverly Bridge went through a rehabilitation during its abandonment. The rails were pulled up, the ties, the cross ties, and the wood beams were just left behind. Much of the catenary supports were left behind, and it was decked over with concrete. This is what it looked like before the side railing was added to this bridge. And finally, the Beverly Bridge was opened on April 8th, 2022 with great fanfare. We had marching bands and trail users and uh, a number of dignitaries, including Governor Inslee and members of various communities representing this connection of a cross-state route. And so the Beverly Bridge continues to serve its purpose as a transportation role, a connector from the east side of to the west side, and once again, it's massive engineering, and it continues to serve us. Unfortunately, there's not a railroad on it, but it is absolutely fortunate that we are able to retain this bridge and be able to use it. And just some kind of personal notes. This crossing this bridge is a exhilarating experience. You can cross it from either the Beverly Junction side or a Beverly trailhead. And just to share with you, here's an eagle crossing the river while we're crossing the Beverly Bridge. That's Wanapon Dam upriver over there, and here is an eagle in free flight. And during the John Wayne ride, uh, horse riders go across this bridge, and this is just an example of sometimes how I feel crossing this bridge: a sense of exhilaration and wonderment, just being out in this big country crossing the Columbia River. Next, we travel well over 100 miles and go from Beverly into eastern Washington, across the channeled scablands, into the Palouse. And this is the Rosalia Concrete Arch Bridges, which cross a valley carved out by Pine Creek, just south of Rosalia. And we cross a former interurban line, as well as a active rail line that was operated by the Northern Pacific in its day, known as the Palouse and Lewiston branch. This is what that valley looked like. We're looking at the east, looking toward the west. That's the crossing of the Northern Pacific that was already in place. You can see some poles out there, and there was the interurban line over there, Pine Creek. And then the railroad, the Milwaukee Road right of way went through a cut and turned toward the north into the town of Rosalia. And this is just a construction that was being taken place. The railroad had some difficulty with the tunnel on the east side of uh, the bridge. They went through a hill, and this tunnel was very unstable. And so what the Milwaukee Road did is they daylighted this tunnel. But while they were daylighting this tunnel, they also built a shoe fly or a temporary track connection around the tunnel area, and and this is part of the construction that was going on. And during all this tunnel construction, uh, part of the uh, part of the wooden bridge was filled in, and later on, uh, they used concrete to complete the bridge as we know it now. And just one thing that's I like about this photo is the fact that the um, uh, the original building of the Milwaukee between 1906 and 1909 used a lot of steam power, used a lot of heavy equipment and modern machinery, and yet during the construction of the shoe fly and a lot of this work, we see horses in place, and this is part of the construction camp during this rehabilitation or daylighting of the tunnel, and there's very much horses in evidence as part of the construction process. So, but with this tunnel daylighting, a lot of fill was dumped off, and the wooden trestle was being replaced by concrete arches. And this is you can see over the course of some progress where the wooden forms were used. Uh, uh, Concrete was poured from a tower up above. There was a mixing plant down in the valley, and this was quite a major project. But in the foreground, you see the interurban railroad coming through here, the Spokane and Inland Empire, which ran from Spokane to uh, Colfax, Washington, through Rosalia. Just various pictures during the construction. As you can see, the progress is being made. That the span is now being filled out. There's that tower for pouring concrete. It's one of the a wonderful photo showing a steam locomotive crossing over there. This would be an eastbound freight train. And so this bridge work was completed in 1915 over the over Pine Creek. Uh, Graceful arches. It the bridge received recognition for its engineering, and the trade press had articles about the construction of this bridge and the techniques that it used. This bridge was a little different, or it was quite a bit different than the steel bridges you saw on the Milwaukee Road in over Snoqualmie Pass, or in the Bitterroot Mountains of Montana, Idaho, and Montana. Uh, it's There is a concrete arch in Cabin Creek, west of Easton, but this, I believe, is the only bridge of this kind of scale on the Milwaukee Road in the West Pacific extension. Uh, these are some plans for the arches. This photo here features the Northern Pacific tracks reaching underneath the Milwaukee Road right of way, underneath the bridge. And it served the Milwaukee Road well over the years. We have a photo of an eastbound freight train crossing over the interurban on a deck bridge that's it was actually a steel bridge that was had concrete poured over the top to blend in with the look of the bridge, followed by the arches. And then this is this plow under photo shows the an eastbound diesel freight with the interurban line, which later became a Great Northern Branch line to Colfax, and there's Pine Creek, and there's the arch for the Northern Pacific, or the P&L branch. And this is the Palouse, the hills of the Palouse, and we know these hills well. They're very productive wheat and grain growing uh, grounds. It's the Palouse in Whitman County is a very productive wheat growing area. We're looking eastbound down the Milwaukee right of way, and this is the cut that was formerly the tunnel that was daylighted, and we're seeing a northbound uh, Burlington Northern train on what was the Palouse and Lewiston line. This train would be heading to Spokane. We see these 40-foot boxcars, and in the early days of the Burlington Northern, you could see all the different road names of the components of the Burlington Northern. For example, the Burlington, Northern Pacific, uh, and then some Burlington Northern boxcars with a Great Northern caboose. And so this is Pine Creek in the foreground, heading under what once was the Inland Empire Highway toward Rosalia and Spokane. So the Rosalia bridge is I would consider this a very iconic bridge, and to this day you can still make out one remnant of the Milwaukee Road. As you can see, there's a bit of the logo still remains painted on this bridge. The bridge went through some structural repairs, and or some of the scaling and uh, work was done to reinforce and help the surface of this bridge, especially over that former Inland Empire Highway. And so that was completed in 2021. So this Rosalia Concrete Arch Bridge continues to serve as a part of the uh, Palouse to Cascades Trail. And here we can see the John Wayne Pioneer wagons and riders with their horses going eastbound after a wonderful day and a wonderful ride through the Palouse. And so this is a drone view of the overall look of the bridge. This is the former Northern Pacific. Now it's that's Spokane, Spangle, and Palouse, a short line railroad operating on the former Palouse and Lewiston track. The justification for this route is to serve a grain loading loadout at a place called Oaksdale or McCoy near Oaksdale, and this is the Pine Creek. This 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 bridge is the first crossing of Pine Creek. Excuse me. This is the first crossing of Pine Creek, and there were a number more as the Milwaukee crossed the meandering Pine Creek between Rosalia and Rock Lake. Uh, and here is the Inland Empire or Palouse Highway, and then the right of way of the interurban. And that's the town of Rosalia right down there. Lastly, the last bridge on our tour is the Tico Bridge, and it was it's frequently referred to as the Tico Trestle. However, technically, it's known as a viaduct, and it was built from the start as a lasting bridge. And give you an example of the engineering preparation for this bridge. This is a plan for the masonry, for the pilings, or for the support of the bridge, and this is the plan for the steel work. In all the intricate details of the engineering of this bridge. These plans were found in the Milwaukee Public Library archives in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, as part of the Milwaukee Public Library. Um, the bridge was constructed with a device called a traveler crane. It's a similar. It was the same crane used in the Bitterroot Mountains, and this is a display found in the Wallace, Idaho Depot Museum. This is an N-scale replica of how the traveler crane worked. But what the purpose was to extend the steel work from the portion of the bridge that was completed out, reaching out into the air beyond where the bridge was constructed. And so, as you can see, it has uh, the it has a very long reach. The overhang was 60 feet. So these are pictures of the traveler crane used in the Bitterroots, where you can see this portion of the bridge is load bearing, and then they can extend their steel work beyond. And so that same technique was used at Tico, where you can see some local folks in their finery coming out and watching a bridge being built. And so this took place over the summer and fall of 1908. And actually, down below is the Union Pacific Railroad, uh, and the traveler crane was brought in by Union Pacific, hauled up to the west side of the right of way, and so they built this bridge from west to east. So as you can see, the concrete supports were concrete piers were built were set early, and then the vertical supports, and then the deck, two individual deck beams were set into that, or girders. This is the last one more one more girder, one more pair of girders to go, and the bridge will be complete. And the wonderful thing about this is you can see it. some people standing on that traveler crane, and you can see some people out on the decking there, and just incredible amount of rigging and the scope and size of this machine working its way across. But one thing that's so special about this is you see these people on the east bank of the right of way, and these folks are just local townspeople, and chances are they're dressed up in their nice finery, coming out to watch a bridge being built. And if you notice, there's umbrellas or parasols that the ladies would have to protect their fair skin from the harsh sun. So this is just a kind of an interesting moment of the construction where local townspeople would come out and actually see the construction of the railroad. So this is the completed bridge across the valley. That's the Union Pacific Railroad coming from Spokane into Chico, and from Chico, the Union Pacific had a small terminal and roundhouse serving the Wallace mining district in Idaho, as well as going south to connect toward their routes to Walla Walla and Pendleton. The Union Pacific is gone from this area as well as the Milwaukee. But during the diesel days, Professor Robert Leachman was a relief agent and operator for the Union Pacific at Tico, and he caught the series of trains going across the Tico trestle. Uh, anyway, shortly after the eastbound, we have a westbound Milwaukee freight with the U-boats, or I believe U-25Cs or U-25B locomotives going across, and the Union Pacific route down below. And the Union Pacific coming in with a grain shuttle from Spokane, and ready to head down, serving the elevators down below. This is what the Chico Bridge looked like at the during its decommissioning or abandonment. Part of it had a wooden deck, and part of the wooden deck was removed. And so for the rehabilitation, a concrete deck with steel side railings was installed. The bridge was the rehabilitation was completed, and the bridge was opened in June of 2022. And this bridge now serves as a crossing, and Tico is a destination for the cross-state ride. Here we can see some horses from the John Wayne Pioneer Wagons and Riders. There's some interpretive signs at Tico, and Rob Leachman was generous in allowing us to use his photographs to help interpret this bridge in its later days, as well as a kiosk which was installed by the John Wayne Pioneer Wagons and Riders with support with the Colusa Cascades Trail Coalition. This is looking toward Mount Tico and the Tico Bridge, a Union Pacific right-of-way down below, or former right-of-way down below, and a view overlooking the town of Tico. So this Tico Bridge is a landmark for the area. Back in the day, this would have been a Union Pacific roundhouse, junction, turntable, and rail facilities, serving a branch to Wallace, as well as continuing down to toward Colfax. There's Mount Tico in the background. So thank you for joining us on this journey, crossing 4 bridges across the state of Washington. You can actually walk or bicycle or ride your horse or wagon across these bridges as part of the Palouse Cascades Trail, and we invite you to take advantage of that opportunity. I'd like to thank our partners and friends on this, the Whitman County Library, Rosalia Branch, which is the primary sponsor for Bridge Days, as well as the organizations that really work to do the heavy lifting on the Palouse Cascades Trail, the Washington State Parks and Recreation Commission, the John Wayne Pioneer Wagons and Riders, who really pioneered this trail with their cross-state ride, the Palouse Cascades Trail Coalition, Friends of the Tico Trestle, Friends of the Palouse Cascades Trail, Rails to Trails Conservancy, which is making the Palouse Cascades Trail a part of the Great American Rail Trail from Washington, D.C. to Washington State on the Pacific, as well as the Milwaukee Road Historical Association. And we thank the dedicated volunteers and friends along the way. We thank you for that. And you're welcome to explore more about the history of the Milwaukee Road across Washington State by visiting Cascade Rail Foundation at the website shown here, www.milwaukeeelectric.org.
Well, Mark, that was great. And there's just a lot of really nice, positive comments in the chat about how enjoyable a program this was. This is just outstanding. So I'm going to ask for questions. And if I don't have any questions, I'm going to stop the recording. Going once, going twice. This will end our recording today.